They say behind every successful man is a woman, but sometimes there's another woman behind the woman, and that woman has a very dangerous backside. Ngozi was the personal secretary to one of Nigeria's most respected real estate moguls, Ebuka Obiako, CEO of Obiako and Sons Limited. But Ngozi was not your average secretary. This woman had a body that defied physics. Her waist was as snatched as an Instagram influencer's filter, and her backside, Lord have mercy. It had presence. It entered rooms before she did. It clapped when she walked. Some say the cleaners once tried to mop her shadow off the tiled floor, thinking someone had spilled Gary water. Her hips swing with authority. Her backside bounced like praise dancers in a Pentecostal revival. Ebuka noticed her the very first day she walked into the office. "Good morning, sir," she said in a voice so sweet it could have been bottled and sold in traffic as chin chin syrup. He raised his head, nodded politely, and as she turned to walk away, his eyes trained like a Google Earth satellite, locked onto the great continent of her backside. He nearly forgot his PIN number. The chief was a disciplined man married to Dr. Amara Obiako, a globe-trotting economist who was more married to her TED Talks than to him. Amara was always somewhere between Nairobi and New York, negotiating foreign investment while unknowingly losing her own home. Back at the office, Obiako tried to remain focused on his files, but the way Ngozi bent over to pick up dropped papers nearly made him choke on his Nescafe. This Ngozi of a girl, what kind of yansh is this? He muttered one morning, dabbing his forehead with his handkerchief like a Baptist preacher. Every morning, Ngozi entered with her usual greeting and walk. Her heels tapped like war drums. Her perfume, soft, sweet, and seductive, danced in the air, entering his nostrils and massaging his morality. One day, as she leaned over to show him a report, her arm brushed his, and he jolted as though he had been electrocuted by the Holy Ghost. Sorry, sir," she said, feigning innocence, though her lip gloss shone with dangerous confidence. "No problem," he said, adjusting his agbada to hide his rising inspiration. Dr. Amara was in Dubai again. "It's the World Economic Summit," she said over the phone. "I'll be back in 10 days." 10 days? Ebuka looked at the calendar, then thought about Ngozi. By day 3, he had invited her to the house. "I just want you to help me sort some files in the study," he lied, lips dry with anticipation. "Okay, sir, anything you say," Ngozi replied, already knowing that her file sorting will end up in pillow shifting. It was supposed to be professional, but once she walked in with her casual jeans and a blouse that looked 2 sizes too small, Ebuka forgot every vow he ever made. By 10 p.m., the files were forgotten. By 10:05 p.m., so was his wedding ring. They moved like two people who had read too many chapters of an African romance novel. Her backside orchestrated the affair. It was the lead dancer, the choir, and the worship leader. The bed squeaked like it was testifying. Every time Amara traveled, Ngozi moved in like NEPA, bringing back lights. They cooked together, laughed together, watched African magic together. She even ironed his clothes with love. Ebuka, who once recited his wife's travel schedule like a prayer point, now eagerly counted down her departure dates like public holidays. Soon, he began to forget Tamara existed. He forgot her favorite tea, forgot the smell of her hair, and even forgot her middle name. Once, during a call with her, he mistakenly called her Ngozi. Amara returned from Germany. She noticed that things has changed. The scent on her husband's pillow was no longer familiar. He barely touched her. 2 nights passed, and he claimed to be tired and fasting. She sat alone in the living room thinking. What her friend told her. She thought, Ijoma called. "My sister, open your eyes. Check his clothes. Check his phone. Check his boxers. Men don't just stop touching their wives, oh." Amara hung up and made a decision. That night, while Ebuka was snoring beside her like a generator with bad fuel, Amara crept out of bed. She tiptoed into his wardrobe, eyes sharp, hands steady. Everything looked normal. She was about to give up and return to bed when a voice in her head whispered, "Check the laundry." She walked slowly to the laundry, And when she opened the cabinet, at first it looked ordinary. Then she saw them, lipstick stains on his white boxers, bright red, the kind that said, I kissed your man and left my signature. Ha ha ha. Then she opened the sweet pocket and found it, a G string, black, tiny, useless for protection but dangerous for temptation. Amara gasped silently. She gripped the wall to steady herself. Tears welled in her eyes. Hot, bitter, silent tears. Her heart broke like pop-off under pressure. She didn't confront him. No, she wasn't going to cry like a widow in front of a man who was still breathing. A week later, she packed a suitcase and told Ibuka, I have a meeting with some foreign investors in Abuja. I'll be gone for 3 days. He barely responded, already texting Ngozi under the table like a teenager in love. As soon as Amara's Uber left the estate gate, Ngozi arrived, hips first. She was wearing a gown that defied fabric elasticity. They laughed, kissed, cooked, and danced. She even wore Ebuka's shirt like a trophy. That evening, at exactly 6:32 p.m., Amara's car pulled into the compound. She walked in like a lioness, quiet and deadly. She opened the door to find Ngozi on her sofa, squeaking juice from a straw like the owner of the building. Her legs were up, and Ebuka was beside her, watching Super Story. Silence fell. Ebuka dropped the remote. Ngozi frowned. That night, Amara lay awake beside Ebuka. I want a divorce, she said, her voice hoarse and lifeless. Ebuka turned, panic flashing in his eyes. Amara, I said I want a divorce, Ebuka. I am done. I can't compete with your mistress and your baby. I can't share my husband with someone who takes off her panties in my kitchen. I can't do this anymore. He sat up. Please, Amara, don't do this, please. She shook her head. You already did it. You chose her. Words spread like wildfire. Amara's mother, Mama Neka, stormed into their mansion like a hurricane in Rapa. You want to leave him to Fiakwa? My daughter, don't let that village girl win. No. How can Ngozi of all people sit on your throne while you are still breathing? Ha! Her father was calmer but broken. My daughter, you have worked so hard for this family. Don't let everything go to waste because of one mistake. Her friends called her. Her elder sister cried. One friend, Ijoma, confessed, I warned you, Amara. I told you. But you were always flying around the world while your husband was flying into someone's bed. Amara felt ganged up on, betrayed again, this time by her loved ones. But nobody saw her pain. Nobody saw the emptiness in her bed, the loneliness in her meals, the ache of watching her man slip through her fingers like sand. She couldn't hold on, no matter how tightly she clenched. One rainy afternoon, Ebuka came into her study room. He fell to his knees in front of her. Amara was startled. Ebuka, what are you doing? He sobbed. Tears streamed down his cheeks like a child. Amara, I was wrong. I was foolish. I let my flesh speak louder than my vows. I let attention replace affection. I I was so stupid. He clutched her hand, but she pulled it away. You made me feel invisible, she whispered, tears forming in her eyes again. Like I was just a furniture in this house. I gave you my heart, my years, my womb. Even when we lost our second baby, I stayed. When you couldn't pay the bank loan that year, I used my salary to bail you out. And now you repay me like this? Ebuka broke down completely. I was lonely, he said weakly. You were always gone, chasing contracts, chasing policies, chasing the world. But I missed you. And when she started giving me attention, food, jokes, laughter, I fell. I am sorry. As he, as he cried, Amara's mind went back to their wedding day, to their first kiss, to the nights they stayed up late planning their future on a whiteboard, to the baby they lost and they almost had. She cried again, not because of Ngozi, but because she still loved him, and that was the most painful part of all. Her lawyer had already drafted the divorce papers, and all she had to do was sign. But each time she held the pen, her fingers trembled, not out of weakness, but confusion, anger, pain, and love. Could she forgive him? Would she ever trust him again? Her career was to blame. Did she truly neglect him? One night they sat together in the garden. No shouting, no crying, just silence and crickets. I was angry, Ebuka, she said, but I also realized maybe I failed too. Maybe I was so focused on being the perfect woman in the world's eyes. I forgot to be present at home. He looked at her with pains in his eyes. No, don't say that. You were never the problem. I was the weak one. You were chasing greatness. I was chasing shadows. She sighed. Now there is a child involved. He looked down. I'll take care of the baby, but she won't come near this house again. I already told her, and if you have me, if you can ever forgive me, I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. The sun rose gently, casting soft orange light into their bedroom. Amara sat at her vanity, holding the divorce papers one more time. She thought of everything, of Ngozi, of the betrayal, of the love they once shared, of the pain of the child, and then she reached out for the lighter. The flame flickered to life, and as she held the papers over the fire, her heart whispered, I'm not ready to let go. Amara watched the last corner of the divorce paper curl up in flames as the fire slowly consumed every line, every legal clause, every word of separation. The ashes dropped quietly into the tray just as the weight began to lift from her chest. It didn't mean the pain was gone. It didn't mean she forgot. It just meant she chose love. The kind of love that bends but doesn't break. The kind that scars and still chooses to be seen. The kind that knows betrayal and still chooses home. When she walked into the bedroom, Ebuka was sitting there, staring blankly at his hands. I burned them, she said softly. He looked up, confused. What? The divorce papers, she whispered. I burned them. And then, without another word, Amara walked into his arms. At first, Ebuka didn't believe it. He stood there frozen until he felt her arms wrapped around his waist and her head rest against his chest. That was when the dam broke. He cried, big, trembling sobs. And this time, Amara held him. I'm so sorry, my love, he whispered against her ear. I know, she said, her voice gentle. We are going to rebuild, one day at a time. In 3 weeks that followed, it was as if they were rediscovering each other. They started eating breakfast together, sometimes on the balcony, sometimes in the kitchen floor, with slices of bread and mugs of Milo like students on break. They laughed more. He started calling her my queen again. She started humming while she cooked again. One evening, Ebuka surprised her with a small candlelight dinner in the backyard. He wore the same native attire he wore on their traditional wedding day. She wore the same perfume as they danced slowly under the soft glow of fairy lights. Amara laid her head on his shoulder and whispered, You almost lost this. Ebuka kissed her forehead. I'll never forget how close I came. They didn't need a crowd. The whole world disappeared in that moment. She walked into her office at the United African Economic Council, greeted her staff, and typed a short email. The organization panicked. Her boss tried to convince her, but she was firm. I gave the world all my time, and I nearly lost my home because of it. Now, I am choosing myself, my marriage, my peace. She didn't retire completely. She started working from home as a consultant, but she made sure her first commitment was to her home, her husband, and herself. She even took up gardening. She started writing again. The home felt alive. After giving birth quietly in a private hospital in Lekki, Ngozi tried to reach out. She wanted to explain, to seek attention, perhaps to reclaim the man she had grown attached to. But Ebuka made it clear, you will never come near my home again. He provided financially for the child because a child is innocent, but he never for once invited her over, not even during holidays. Ngozi, shamed and bitter, moved on eventually. Her chapter closed. One cool Saturday morning, Ebuka walked into the kitchen and saw Amara wearing his shirt, humming a tune as she flipped pancakes. He walked up behind her, slid his arms around her waist, and whispered, You still make me nervous, you know. She laughed and leaned into him. Why? Because you are the most beautiful thing I almost lost. They kissed slowly, deeply, the kind of kiss that told stories, carried regrets, forgiveness, hope, and 1,000 silent thank yous. Later that evening, as rain fell gently outside, they lay on the couch under one wrapper. She played with his beard while he rubbed her feet. Do you think we will be okay? She asked softly. Ebuka looked into her eyes. We already are. They renewed their vows in a small private ceremony in Obudu. Just the two of them under the sunset. Barefoot, hand clasped, hearts full. I promise to you, even when it's hard, I'll still choose you, she said, tears glistening in her eyes. I promise never to take your love for granted again, he replied, voice thick with emotion. They exchanged rings again. Only this time it meant more because they knew what it cost to come back from the edge. Back in Lagos, a visitor arrived. It was a young female journalist requesting to interview Amara for her award winning contribution to the African economy. Amara smiled. Thank you, but my greatest contribution isn't on paper. Oh, what is it, Ma? She looked towards the window where Ebuka was playing with some neighborhood kids, laughter bubbling from him like a childhood. My greatest contribution, she said, voice soft as sure, was learning how to love even after the storm. And for the first time in years, Amara felt whole, truly whole. Hi, besties! Thank you for watching my story till the end. Please don't forget to share, like, and please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much. See you in my next story. Bye!